Last year, we asked our staff and Patreon supporters to submit their top 10 votes for the first ever Nintendo World Report Hall of Fame. The rules for the selection process were simple. Titles submitted were must-play masterpieces on Nintendo platforms. These games also had to be at least 5 years old. The initial list of submissions included 77 different titles. We then asked the voting board to pick out their favorite 15 games from this giant list and came up with the top 15 games selected by everyone. The final list was then taken to one last vote. If these games received over at least 50% approval rating from members of the voting board, they will go down in history as some of the greatest pieces of software ever to hit a Nintendo platform. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the results are in. I present to you the NWR Hall of Fame. Who would have known that Satoshi Tajiri, creator of the Pokemon series, would develop one of the biggest video game franchises of all time, based on his love for bug collecting as a child? Pokemon is one of the most recognized franchises in Nintendo's history, rivaling that of other franchises like Mario and Zelda. To date, it has sold around 208 million units worldwide, and it all started with 2 and later 3 sets of games: Pokemon Red, Pokemon Green, and later Pokemon Blue. The original Pokemon has several goals. The main goal you are tasked with is completing the Pokemon League Challenge, where players compete for 8 gym badges, then battle 5 trainers in a row to become Pokemon League champion. Along the way, players also deal with the nefarious Team Rocket, who are hell-bent on taking over the world using Pokemon to further their goals. But the biggest aspect of Pokemon is the series' long-lasting catchphrase, "Gotta catch 'em all." In the original game, a side goal is to collect 150 Pokemon. You can capture most, but not all Pokemon in each version. This might sound like a clever marketing ploy to get kids to buy more versions of the game, but there is a less greedy explanation. The games promote the idea of teaming up with people who have the opposite color of Pokemon game and trading what they have over to your version and vice versa. That way you can both work toward collecting them all together. Pokemon isn't a revolutionary RPG in the traditional fashion. The story itself is very generic, there are no real plot twists, and most trainers you battle don't even have individual names, aside from the gym leaders. But while it's generic in tone and presentation, it's also generic in its battle mechanics. These are, however, actually one of the game's greatest attributes. The game plays very much in a rock, paper, scissors scenario. Fire is weak to water, water is weak to grass, grass is weak to ice, and so forth. Once the player figures out the chart, it's very easy to assemble a team of Pokemon that is able to thwart any Pokemon that comes their way. Simplicity is the biggest key to some of the biggest games of all time. Pokemon is so simple to get into and play, it's no wonder that its popularity continues to be as constant as it was 20 years ago. At its peak, Pokemon was one of the hottest fads of the 1990s. Although it cooled down a few years later, Pokemon remains one of the most popular video game series of all time. Before Pokemon Sun and Moon even released, they were already some of the most pre-ordered titles in Nintendo's history. At 20 years old, the franchise continues to be strong, with no signs of relenting anytime soon. Red and Blue were the games that started them all, and it should be no surprise that they have earned a spot in our Hall of Fame. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to NWR TV for more Nintendo coverage, and check out NintendoWorldReport.com. If you'd like to, you can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/NWR.